Well, welcome to this edition of Yada Yahowah Radio. We are uniquely here with both of our main contributors to Family Hour. We've got Kevin in his usual position on top and Captain Kirk beneath him there. Hello, fellows. Yeah, we're going coast to coast from the middle of the Caribbean all the way to California and back here for you. The reason we're pairing up again is that our last episode on Chakmah Choter, which is the wise branch, if you will, using YAHOWAH symbolism, we were headed to Zechariah 6, having finished Zechariah 5. Zechariah 5 was interesting for us because it was used to send my wife to hell. I can tell you she's still here and giggling. So
much for that.
She may be part of the entourage that takes the evil woman, and likely will be, takes the evil woman to Babylon, but she's just transport. So we had the opportunity to go through Zechariah 5, which was really interesting on how the whore of Babylon is being sent to Babylon. And the implications of that, of course, are fascinating, because what it does mean is this mortal remnant of Yisrael, that the Adamah Parah, the red heifer, is going to prepare for the arrival of Dod and Yahowah on Towrah, and then again on Kippurim in year 6000 Yah, September, October of 2033, that they are going to retain free will and they will be immortal. I think they'll be very long-lived. I think that they'll have the capacity to live all the way through the 1,000-year period of celebration of Sukkah. But they will have the opportunity to go AWOL if they wish to. It'd be dumb, because we're going to be still producing the YAHOWAH blog. We're going to do our best to teach them and to educate them, and to educate and teach their children. So it will be against all odds that they would choose to rebel. But, think about Adam and Chawah in the garden. Everything about them was a perfect situation. There was no religion. There was no politics. There was no militancy. There were no conspiracies. It was just them and YAHOWAH in a perfect environment. And we're going back to the entire earth being returned to the conditions experienced in Eden. So we're going right back to those perfect, idyllic conditions. YAHOWAH being present, his beloved son, Dod, as sovereign. And we're going to be there doing our best to educate and prepare everyone and equip them with the knowledge they will need to prevail. And yet, there will be some who choose not Yah. And that, of course, is necessary to maintain free will. And therefore, the evil woman is being carried off to Babylon, where she will have to stay. And this is the whore of Babylon. So after that, the progression has been, we've had two witnesses presented. They're both presented as olive trees. And they're on either side of YAHOWAH's principal image, his logo, this menorah that's spinning over my left shoulder. And they will be responsible for calling this final remnant of God's people, the remnant of Yisrael, back home, because God is returning to reconcile his relationship with his people, not with a church, not with Goyim, not with Christians, certainly not with Muslims, and not with those who practice Judaism, but Yehudim and Yisraelites who embrace his name and his son and understand what is being done to prepare them. And then immediately during this period, we're going to see YAHOWAH re-intervene again, demonstrably. There's going to be a number of signs in the sky, in addition to what he talks about in Zechariah, which is this scrolling banner that's going to denounce religion and politics. It's going to contain substantial amounts of goddamn religion and Twistianity and Babel. And then also considerable amounts of this the YAHOWAH blog, and mostly of the YAHOWAH blog, but also some of the books, to give everybody the opportunity to make the right decision. So it'll sort of be, I think a lot of this is going to be like we're doing in your shorts, Kevin, where you take what we're saying in these programs, and then you put read it and hear it. If Elia, and not if, when Elia and I are addressing the children of Israel and the world from the Temple Mount, we're using our words. God can also scroll a copy and that can be read in any language of what we're saying above us.
Right.
Yeah. And we'll call them Yahowah's Kevin Shorts.
Kevin Shorts.
Yes,
Very
Kevin
good.
Shorts. Can be
I can
Kevin Shorts
illustrate
and
that
be
too.
scrolling there. Do your laundry before the,
Yeah,
the
you
big
go.
event.
Clothespin.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, what we do on the Yahowah blog are all longs. We're reasonably verbose, and I've never found any subject that we couldn't turn into 20 or 30 one-hour shows. But that isn't the favored length for the folks on YouTube and Facebook and X. It's closer to 5 minutes is the attention span. And that's pushing it by probably 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
30 seconds,
yeah. And so what Kevin does each day out of the programs that we do, he takes interesting segments of our hour-long shows and he breaks them into 5-minute shorts. And in those shorts, he has the caption underneath it. He has the words that we are saying so that they can be more effective in their communication. And I think there'll be a number of shorts that'll be part of the scrolling Nesh banner at that time. So after we're told about that, and then God's talking about how he's going to prevail with his people, we find we have this capture and escorting away of the whore of Babylon, which is important because at this point, the whore of Babylon will have 3 parts of her nature that are very troubling in these last days. There is religious Babylon, which is the Roman Catholic Church specifically, and Christianity generally, because it evolved out of the Imperial Roman Empire, which was the progression of those beasts. And now we have a American Pope. So this is fitting right into the prophecies of Yahshua. Second, we have political Babylon, which again, if you go through the progression of events, and it parlays out of Imperial Rome, the country that has encapsulated so much of Imperial Rome with Capitol Hill, with the Senate, and calling itself a republic, be the United States. And of course, the largest military in the world, the United States. And then you have geographic Babylon, which would be the Middle East and Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia in particular. And they're the trinity of evil being perpetrated against Israel. Just as a program note before we go on from here, there was an announcement today in the Arab news, and the Arab news has been more accurate regarding the things that are happening behind the scenes with the Trump administration than has been American news agencies. Although this story has been picked up in many significant news agencies, including the Israeli Times, that I was right. Donald Trump is going to announce a Palestinian state, and it is going to be imposed on Israel. And he has allowed Saudi Arabia to invite al-Julani, who is the ISIS Islamic State terrorist that is now in control of Syria, to that summit. And he has invited Abbas, who is the pay-for-slay dictator of the Palestinian Authority that never runs for election because he would be overwhelmed by Hamas's popularity among the Muslims in Israel. He's invited him as well. And he's invited the president of Lebanon for this announcement of a Palestinian state with the Saudi Arabian government saying that Trump has agreed to Mohammed bin Salman's, the Crown Prince's, terms. That is, of course, tragic news, but it's what I have been reporting since November 3rd or 4th of this of last year, the moment that Trump won the presidency, because it is proclaimed by the prophets. But should this happen this soon, and we know it was going to be put into effect on or before May 22nd of 2026, exactly 12 months from now. And of course, the pieces have to be put into place. And Trump is the type that would make an announcement without thinking through all of the details, like where are the borders and what's the governance going to be. It's just Trump's style to do it that way. And it'll take some time to implement it, but I think that is where, I know that's where we're headed. It's just a matter of will he make that announcement, as the Arab media is discussing now. And of course, it would be also interesting that the two countries that have the three countries really that have the most involvement in all of this, Israel, of course, not invited, Egypt and Jordan, neither invited. And you might say, okay, so you're not inviting Israel because this is being imposed on them. This is Trump's financial buddies all gathered together to plot the destruction and genocide of Israel. So, of course, they wouldn't want Israel there. And, of course, they're going to drape it all in Neville Chamberlain, peace in our time rhetoric, just as Neville Chamberlain assured that he had negotiated successfully to appease the Nazis by giving them Czechoslovakia. This time, the Neville Chamberlain is Donald Trump and Czechoslovakia is Israel. That the two countries that also were not invited, Egypt and Jordan, and you'd say, well, why wouldn't they be invited since they would agree with the rest of the Muslims? And that is because that MBS shares something in common with Donald Trump, and so that neither of them play nicely with others. Donald Trump doesn't like to give anybody else credit. He doesn't even want to work with Congress for fear that they would claim some credit for his executive orders. He certainly doesn't want to work with Israel. He doesn't want to share credit, and nor does MBS. And MBS knows that the countries that have been working the hardest and most diligently for the establishment of a Fakistanian state are Egypt and Jordan. Gaza was once part of Egypt, and what's called the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, was once part of Jordan and the other part of Egypt. So by eliminating them, it is strictly Saudi Arabia's affair, Qatari's affair, and they leave out Egypt and Jordan from the discussions and from credit. So I'm going to do a program, maybe I'll start later this evening, if not, it'll be tomorrow, on a combination of the last 2 weeks. I think when I put together the articles that I had written and posted over the last 2 weeks, it was 38 pages last time I checked of revelations pertaining to what I had perceived was going to happen with Donald Trump. My hope in doing this is not to say, I told you so. It is for those who we're trying to awaken on X and Facebook and YouTube, that we know what we're talking about. Then we say something's going to happen, it is going to happen. And if we were astute enough to be the only people in the world the day after the presidential election to explain that this was going to happen, and then find all of the clues, some 20 of them, maybe even 25 of them now that have been laid out since that time, and say these are all pointing to this conclusion, it is inevitable, and having everyone disagree and, well, click don't follow that person, that when you're that far out on something this extreme and this unpopular and you nail it and get it right, people ought to listen to what else you have to say. And in our case, it would be Yahowah's name, his affinity for his son, Dod, and the conditions of the covenant, the fulfillment of the covenant's benefits through the Moed Mikre, and the timeline that we know stands between us and their return. So that is the purpose of all of this. All right. Everything to add to that before we jump into Zechariah 6:1?
No.
All right.
Fire
away. Okay. I'm okay to with constructive criticism here. If you my position has been exceedingly extreme. You know, I am not a liberal. I am too conservative politically to be a Republican. So I'm not saying this because of some political affiliation. I'm saying this because the prophets revealed it, and I have watched closely and been exceedingly observant and have noted all of the evidence along the way that has indicated this is true. And in terms of news events, political events, international events, pursuant to the world as we know it, this is the single biggest event in the last at least 100 years. That's how big this is. Because the last time somebody traded someone else's land for peace with an entity as ruthless, diabolical as Islam is when Neville Chamberlain in the UK gave up Czechoslovakia, which wasn't his to give, to Adolf Hitler and the Nazis to appease them. And this time it's Donald Trump giving up Israel to Muslims like Saudi Arabia and Qatar to appease them. And the last time we played this game, it led directly and almost immediately to World War II. And some 55 million people died just in the war, and about 200 million people died in the events prior to and in the aftermath of that war. This time, it's a much bigger deal because rather than 60 million Germans, we are now dealing with 2 billion Muslims. Islam is far more ruthless and genocidal than was Nazism. And Israel is a much bigger deal in terms of world events, and particularly with God, than is Poland or France or any of those European countries that were part of the last episode. So this is going to lead to world war. It's going to cost millions of Jews their lives, and it's going to cost billions of people worldwide of their lives. It's going to cripple the United States. And it's just going to be enormously devastating. It's the single worst thing that could possibly happen. So
I would like to say one little thing. It just this has got to confirm to anyone that's followed a little bit, even a little bit of our programs and the books, that confirms the timeline. It tells you that Shabuah is really, we got it nailed next year. You better act now if you want to escape this horrible stuff, because it's real.
We haven't done a program on Zechariah, the full of Zechariah 17 and 18 in a while. We've covered 17 a number of times, the first 7 or 8 verses of it. But just as a reaffirmation of what you said there, Kirk.
Yes.
Zechariah, Isaiah, not Zechariah, I'm sorry, Yeshaya, Isaiah. You know, one of the challenges here of trying to do multiple programs and then posting all day is you get one name in your brain, like we're going to talk about Zechariah, but we're actually dealing with Yeshaya. Yeshaya is Isaiah. That Yeshaya, Isaiah 17 and 18 is among the most important prophecies in the Torah, particularly relative to international events. and the harvest of God's people. And what the prophet says is that when the Shabuah harvest occurs, there will be the beginning of the time of Jacob's troubles, and that the fulfillment of the Shabuah harvest will be commiserate with the thinning of Israel at the waist. And that thinning of Israel at the waist is consistent with Dod's prophecy as Gabriel to Daniel, where he said a treaty will be affirmed by many at this time. And Israel is going to be forced into the two-state solution. And what the prophets say is that Israel then becomes indefensible. And as a result of that, Muslims are Muslims, and they attack in far greater numbers than they did on October 2nd or October 7th. And I don't know if the numbers are 100 times worse. I don't think that's correct. I think it's going to be closer to 1,000 times more jihadists, and that they're going to attack at about the same length of time that it took the world to engage in war after Neville Chamberlain's Peace in Our Time, which is a little over a year. So we're told that the two-state solution is going to be imposed concurrent with the Shabuah, which means it has to be done by May 22nd, 2026. So we knew the timing of when this was going to happen. That's how we figured out it was Trump that's going to be doing it. And then Trump did everything. Trump went from being a man that was perceived as being solidly in Israel's camp, and we said, no, this is all going to change. You're going to watch it before your eyes. And over the next 100 days, we saw him do everything he could to turn on Israel. And so it's almost like he's demon possessed, and that this is his destiny to do this. Now, I'm not saying he is demon possessed, but I said it's almost to that extent, watching him play out this in this way. And then we know that as a result of this, and Israel, the prophets say, becomes indefensible, and then Yahowah uses the term that the jihadists flood into Israel at a rate that is so great that there are not enough soldiers and enough weapons to stop them. And that they will go into Israeli homes and they're going to rape Israeli women, and they're going to be terrorists. They're going to engage in torture, acts of abduction and mass murder. They're going to do October 7th. But according to the prophet Yoel, it's going to be so horrific, it's going to be worse than anything Israel has ever faced. So it's worse than October 7th and the Holocaust combined. So we knew that was the case. And then in Yahowah 18, there are some 50 different attributes that indicate that the country that is responsible for abandoning Israel and putting Israel in this spot, selling the weapons to her foes, and then selling Israel out, undermining the country, being the final endorsement for the two-state solution, is the United States. Mm-hmm. So we simply put the pieces together, and this is where they led. And we have no pleasure in denouncing the United States or denouncing Donald Trump, but that's just where the pieces fall. And everything we read and see is consistent with what the prophets revealed. And I would just leave with one other thought, is that we've been studying Yahowah and Yoel and the other prophets of Yahowah, Zechariah, for some time. What is their percentage of getting stuff right versus wrong?
100% right.
100%, yeah. 100%
yeah, they've never missed. They aren't going to be wrong this time. All right, so this is Zechariah 6:1. We're going to go into territory that has been brought forth into a very popular religion in Christianity, into the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is essentially paraphrased stories that are plagiarized from Yahweh's prophets, and in some cases Ezekiel happens to be the biggest source, and he was a non-prophet. So by the fact that Christianity is so much more popular than any other religion, and they claim Revelation as theirs, even though Revelation is a plagiarized source of prophecy from God's real prophets. By dint of its popularity, the four colored horses and chariots have become the four horses of the apocalypse, and that is not the case. So we're going to find out what God actually said about them, and I think you'll find it fascinating. So I returned, and I elevated my perceptions, lifting my eyes, and looked, and behold, four chariots, riders and vehicles, coming forth from between the two mountains. And these mountains were hills of brassy copper and bronze. So at the beginning here, fellas, just get your opinion. Do you think these are actual vehicles being pulled by, they're going between the mountains, they're flying horses, or is there something else that is being conveyed here? And what about the mountains were brassy copper and bronze? Do you think they're real? What's your first take?
Well, go ahead, Kevin.
It's real, yes, because we have Zechariah, who's a prophet, telling us about it. Now, whether he's telling us these are vehicles, these are orbs, it's the words that were used to in his vernacular to describe what he was seeing. You know, the Merkaba, this conveyance of some sort, and it definitely had colors. You know, I know whether they had a word for ark. They know what a boat. They know what boats are. So it wasn't like it was a flying boat or something like. He used Merkaba for a reason, because it had something with it. It conveyed people in it, wheels, whatever it was, and then even being pulled by horses. You know.
Yeah. Well, he's very explicit that it's pulled by Zeus, and Zeus can speak of two things. It's a flying bird, or it's a stallion kind of a horse.
Mm-hmm.
So your view is that whether or not it's an actual chariot and an actual flying horse, that it's the closest thing to that based upon the vocabulary of the day.
That's what my guess would be. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It could
What
be
do you
made out
think,
of light, though. Well, I think it could be made out of light as well. You know, we talk a lot about that. So it could be something of that order and appear to him like that. Or he had no other way to compare it to.
Yeah. What he's describing is what he's seeing, and what we see is light. You know that whether it is an actual chariot pulled by a flying horse, or it's the image that is of a flying chariot pulled by a flying horse. They're really one in the same from a prophetic. What did you see? Because all we see is light. So I think that I think you're both correct. I do think that he is describing what he saw as accurately as he can in the words of the day. There is a vehicle called a Merkaba, which is a vehicle that would hold a rider, and these are wheeled vehicles, although they are elevated. They're not on the ground. In this case, they're between the hills of brassy copper and bronze. And later he's going to mention in the next statement that they're pulled by Zeus, which in Hebrew could either be a horse or a bird. Put the two together, you have a flying horse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then the next comment were the hills of brassy copper and bronze. The hills that I think he's talking about are the only two hills that matter.
Yeah.
At this point, Olives and Moriah, and they're both comprised principally of limestone. And in the morning or in the evening, with the long rays of the sun glistening off of limestone, they're going to take the hue of brassy copper or bronze.
You know that. Wow.
So
okay.
I think that's, again, you're an artist, Kirk, but
Yeah.
what we see is light. And so he's revealing what he's seeing. He's not doing chemical analysis of the mountains and saying, yes, I find
No.
these trace elements. No, it's what he's seeing. So I think that
Yeah.
mountains and the hills of brassy, copper, and bronze would be, would be Zion and, not Zion, but, well, Zion is the ridge line of Moriah. So it's Moriah and the Mount of Olives. And I think this is also important because, as I've shared with you, I've seen the vision of the sacrifice of the red heifer and the way that it's described. And I know all of Yahowah's accoutrements, and I know that the temple layout and the fact that when the Dome of the Rock goes and Alaska Moss goes, and he places the replica of the, and knowing Yahowah, it doesn't even have to be a replica, it could be the actual one from long ago that he's had in safe storage. But the tent of the restoring witness on the Temple Mount, cleansed of the religious scars, there is a 0% chance that Yahowah is not going to orient it correctly, which means it's going to face the east. And that means that the brazen altar that would be there, that has the 4 horns, the 2 for the ram representing David, the 2 for the bull representing Yada as the Adam of Torah, would be oriented towards the front of it. So between it and the Mount of Olives. And the reason that's important is that the Mount of Olives rises above Zion, where if you go on the other side, like where the western wall is, and you're looking up at the Temple Mount, you can't see anything below the hideous blue roof line of the Dome of the Hoofyprint. So you would never see an altar that's on the ground. So the only place that you could be seen is to the east, from a stadium seating, if you will, on the Mount of Olives. So with the tent of the restoring witness on Mount Moriah, the stunning visual of what Yahowah is doing with the flames racing to the heavens and the waters that are pouring off the mount, in front of the tent of the restoring witness on the east side of it, overlooking the Mount of Olives, the natural place for these chariots to go through if they're doing God's business would be right there, particularly starting with the red one, because the red one is that bloody red man that comes from Edom, who's playing the role of the red heifer. So that's why I think they're going between these two mountains, because the audience that's witnessing this is on Olives overlooking Moriah, with all these festivities visible right in between them.
Wow.
So that's how I am picturing what we're seeing here. And by the way, we say this a lot. I say this a lot. I've devoted the last 24 years of my life, every waking hour, to translating Yahowah's testimony and analyzing it and sharing it. And I've deduced many tens of thousands of unique insights based upon what I have learned, and can do things like this, which you can share why this would be this way based upon other things that we're told, like the sacrifice of the Adam of Torah, what Yahowah was going to do with the sacrifice of the red heifer to heal the adulterous woman, and how the 2 witnesses are going to be there with the tent of the restoring witness and the on top of the Temple Mount. So when you know all of those things, you can make conclusions like this. Now, that does not mean that every conclusion, every interpretation is precisely accurate, but the overwhelming percentages of them have been. There's a difference between being a witness and being a prophet. If I was a prophet, I'd have to have it right 100% the first time. Being an observant foreigner who is a witness, the process is different. You're supposed to, procedures that Yahowah played, is to study the text, come to understand what God's prophets said, put the clues together, and reveal the picture they paint. And that picture becomes more detailed and more refined the more we learn, the more we share, the more we consider it. But in this case, I think there's a very high likelihood that what I'm describing to you is exactly what is going to be seen and why it's going to be that way. But should you wish to posture a different viewpoint, you're certainly welcome to do so. Just make sure it's consistent with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, this is from whence the author of Revelations drew his inspiration for the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And while there are the same number and same color, that is where the resemblance ends. Of course, the course of this review of Zechariah 6, I think you're going to appreciate the difference and the actual intent of those 4 chariots for the first time. In this case, these flying spiritual chariots, and they have a ruach connotation to them,
Mm-hmm.
would otherwise be purely symbolic, with all of the signs and the wonders above Jerusalem prior to Dod's arrival with Yahowah. I think in this case, the allegorical is also very close to actual. Sometimes, God speaks of like the fulfillment of Passover. It has to be fulfilled with a lamb, right?
Yeah.
But Dod's body was that of a man, so the man is representing the lamb. And so there are cases where you do have to recognize he's using symbolic terms. In this case, I think that the allegorical and the actual are very, very similar. I think this is a time unlike what we have witnessed previously, where God's very active, dealing miraculously as a witness to, because he wants the best and the brightest of Yisrael to come home. He wants to get their attention. So in this light, the mountains aren't made of metal. Mount Olives and Moriah are basking in the brassy copper and bronze hue, colored as they would be by the long, warm rays of the late afternoon sun on Towrah. Goes on. With the chariot that was the first and foremost, Ha-Rishon, the most important in this case of the 4 chariots. The flying stallions, plural, Hasus, Adom, were red. Something else that's red. The bloody red man comes from Edom, right? Bloody red man of the earth. The Adamah Parah is a bloody red man of the earth who is productive, and the man who comes from Edom that saves many is dressed in red. And Adam here for red is written exactly as it would be as Adamah Parah. So the flying stallions were red. Singular chariot, red. With the chariot that was second, the airborne horses were black. The stallions, as swift as swallows, were swarthy and dark-skinned. That is now Zechariah, memorial men of Yah, Zechariah 6:2. With the chariot that was third, the flying steeds were white. The stallions, as swift as swallows, were purifying and illuminating Laban. With the chariot that was fourth, the winged horses were dappled and splotchy. The stallions, as swift as swallows, were speckled as if covered in hailstones, flesh-colored, while strong and stout. And so I responded to the spiritual messenger, and I said to the heavenly representative who had spoken to me, what is Zechariah's favorite line? What are these, sir? What are we talking about here?
Question mark.
We got 4. Red, black, white, and dappled or swarthy. Not swarthy, but dappled, speckled.
An Appaloosa.
Yeah, dappled and speckled. Yeah, well, yeah, an Appaloosa would be the correct term for an actual horse. I think the colors here are symbolic
I,
of
I had one, though. It was what it
of the
reminded me of.
job they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So we can think of red, black, white, and mixed, neither white nor black, but something in between for these colors. Now, what I was surprised is that heretofore, when we jump into allegorical rhetoric like this, symbolic rhetoric, that it's usually difficult. It takes a lot of thinking, a lot of study to figure out what these things represent. But now that we're sort of at the end and we put the pieces of the puzzle together, I translated it and said, well, this is what they represent. I didn't even have to compare it to anything. So what I'm going to tell you is just what immediately was obvious to me. So while the obvious implication is that for most people that the red horse is for war and that black is for death and that white is for life and that dappled flesh represents those caught in between, it isn't so. At least of the Rishon, the first and foremost steed. And this conclusion is based upon three factors. One, the Adom does not leave Jerusalem. Remember a snarky God answering a question about
where you going?
where it's going to happen to Asher once we're gone, and he came back with, so where do you think you're going? We spoke about Yeshayah, Isaiah 17. After the Towrah gleaning, Yeshayah 17 is quite clear that the parah, this bull, stays. He sacrifices his life as the Adam of parah. So, yeah, where are you going? You're not going anywhere. Where's the red chariot going? It's not staying right here. So that was the first. It doesn't leave Jerusalem, and these wars by this time are going to be enveloping the world. The Adom, second, is presented similarly to Adam Parah, the bloody red man of the earth who is productive. And this moment, he's going to be sacrificing his life at this very moment in Jerusalem. Third, Yahweh is bringing his most treasured from around the world to the Choter so that he can wash and prepare them for Dod's return. What we're going to hear about these other two horses, other three chariots, is that they are busy. They are searching the world, and two of them are going to do all of their business on this day. And so Yahweh was so intent on honoring the prophecy in Yeshayah 17, where he said, I'm going to bring my people, and he listed all the different places he's going to bring them from. He's bringing them to the red heifer, to the Adam Parah, this bloody red man on the earth who is productive, for them to be able to benefit from his sacrifice. God is very active at this moment, and he's going to make the most of what is happening here. So it's what makes sense. Yahweh was bringing his people, just as he said in Yeshayah 17, from around the world for this very reason. So as we move into the explanation, we quickly discover that the spiritual charioteers are Yahweh's implements as he scours the world for survivors and sukkah entrance. The black and white nature of the second and third, with one following the other, represents the life and death consequence of embracing the conditions necessary to benefit from the sacrifice of the Adam Parah. If you are not open to accepting Yahweh's name, Dod as your king and returning Messiah and the Son of God who fulfilled Pesach Matzah and Bakodim, and sovereign going forward. You don't want to celebrate Towrah. You're still into Rosh Hashanah. You don't want to participate in Yom Kippurim as it was intended. You still rather twirl chickens over your head. Or you're a Christian and you're opposed to all of this, or you're Muslim and you're just there to kill. But in this particular case, I'm convinced that the white and the black chariots are scouring the world for people whose DNA says that they are Jews. And the speckled one is going out to the rest of the world for searching for the right kind of Gentiles to populate the millennial celebration of Sukkah. So the black and white chariot, strictly for Jews. And the Jews, the spiritual chariots are going to immediately determine which Jews are still religious, still political, still too pig-headed to accept Yahweh's name, embrace his son, and return home. And there's nothing anyone can do for them at this point. And so they can't go into the millennial celebration of Sukkah. They can't be among the worker bees of this time as Gentiles. They can't be saved, so that's it. Black chariot, death. And at this point, I think it's 2/3 of Israelites are already going to have died in the ensuing wars. And my hope is that a goodly number of the 5 million Jews worldwide, of which half will be in Israel and half will be in the United States primarily, but also in Western Europe, that they will get their act together. They will have listened to Elia and myself to the point that they can be picked up by the white chariot and brought home. But that's who we're talking about. So in this regard, as we consider this, the black and white nature of the second and third chariots, the one following the other, are just literally life and death for the remnant of Israel. Now, in this regard, they are dispatched from Shamaim, the spiritual realms. And that means they're coming out of Yahweh's home, and which is in the heavens. Therefore, while all can mean over or before, since it is addressing the upright one, it is revealing that the chariots will be dispatched before Dod's arrival, Towrah. And in this light, even though we can render the object of the appearance as Edom, Lord, or Edom, upright one, since this is a reference to our returning king, we know which rendering was intended. Therefore, it's easier and clearer to me to say that Yahweh is deploying all four Ruach for the benefit of his people. So the Malach answered, this is the spiritual messenger, and he said to me, remember, Zechariah said, what are these things? And so the Malach answered, and he said to me, these are the four Ruach spirits of Shamaim, of the spiritual realm of the heavens. Now, this is a challenge for a lot of people because they want to, like, for example, to believe that the Holy Spirit is the second person of the Trinity, or they want to turn the Ruach Kodesh into Mama God with a unique personality that needs to have a voice. And so they're very keen to say that Yahweh has one spirit, and that one spirit is spiritual mom. And in Catholicism, it would be the Asherah myth, Queen of Heaven, Mother of God, Madonna, and Child. But this clearly says, as does Yeshaya Isaiah 11, that God has more than one Ruach that he can dispatch. Now, the Malach are spiritual beings, but they're not specifically called Ruach. This is for Ruach spirits coming out of the heavens. And the Choter has 4. Or excuse me, the Choter has 7. The Choter has 7, and here's 4 in this particular case. So these chariots are controlled by an entity vastly superior to a malak or a karab, the top of the malak food chain.
Yeah, that's true.
These are way above that in pay grade.
That's something I was thinking about when reading through this the first time, is that even Malak never take people anywhere. I mean, even whenever they go to get Lot, they're walking out of Sodom and Gomorrah. He doesn't just pick them up and transport them or anything, So this is definitely something bigger, more powerful for sure.
Bigger, more powerful, more directly connected with God, can convey God's intelligence, can convey God's will, but infinitely more powerful. And I'm not degrading Malak. If it wasn't for Malak, I wouldn't even be alive. So, I'm a big fan of the Malak. Malak are powerful enough to divert hurricanes away from where I'm living, and to divert Muslims who have by the thousands threatened to kill me. So I'm a huge fan of Malak, and Malak are going to play a really big role in the end times. And here's a Malak revealing the very words of an inspiration of God. So this is a really smart Malak that's giving this message. So Malak are great, and but when you're dealing with a Ruach of Yahweh, that's a far bigger deal. So these 4 chariots of the 4 colors are all spiritually driven. That also ties more closely into the red one not being of war, because Yahweh's Malak are not going to, Yahweh's Ruach are not going to fight or start a war. They're not even going to mitigate a war. But Yahweh's Ruach are essential to the nature of the Choter, who is this man from Edom who will be giving his life as the red heifer. So it's another tie-in to, that's the red one. So these are 4 Ruach spirits of Shamayim, of the spiritual realm of the heavens, coming out and going forth for the reason of taking a stand to be present before the upright one of all the earth. Now, the upright one of all the earth, the Edom, is can be one of 2 people. We've talked about that. The most natural is to say it is of Dod, that he is the upright pillar that would hold up and enlarge and secure the tent of the witness, is how he is presented. He's the main guy. He is the ultimate upright one. He's going to be the sovereign and king of the earth, based upon Yahweh's promises. And so I like him as the Edom, but there are times when Edom, upright one, can apply to Yahweh. It's a Torah term when it is vocalized as Edom, and it becomes a rabbinical term when vocalized with the diacritical markings as Edom. But this is written with the Wah, and I think it is Edom. Edom is used throughout the Torah to speak of that upright pillar set into the proper foundation that is used to uphold and to support and enlarge and secure the protective nature of the tent of the restoring witness. So it is before the arrival of the upright one that these 4 spiritual chariots depart. Now, once again, we have to take the fact that these 4-colored chariots with the 4-colored horses, and the word for horse is the same word for flying bird, and they're coming out of heaven, not running across the surface of the earth. So they're flying. And they're piloted by Ruach, Yahweh's Ruach. Now that's a very powerful image. So they are conveying and carrying the intelligence of God to be discerning. They can make very quick judgments. You go here, you go there, you go nowhere. They're going to make very quick survey of the earth. So while it is uncomfortable to perceive our world this way, the simple truth is that Yahweh has withdrawn and Satan has made the most of his opportunity, becoming the Lord of the earth. However, at this moment of Dod's return as king, which I think casts him as the Edom, the upright pillar, and our foundation. The Son of God is claiming what is rightfully his. This is, therefore, Satan's swan song. And so we should see all four Ruach Yasab taking a stand such they are present and accounted for at this critical juncture in human history between the arrival and sacrifice of the Adamah Parah on the Temple Mount and the preparation for his sacrifice at the hands of Hasatan, and the preparation this provides for the final remnant of Israel for them there to receive Dod upon his return. So we are looking at this time between Teruah and Kippurim in year 6000 Yah. Therefore, just before Dod's homecoming on the Shabbat of Teruah, Dod's not coming back on the Shabbat of Teruah, he is coming back on Yom Kippurim, but his people are prepared for his arrival on the Shabbat of Teruah. The spiritual chariots with the black and the white flying steeds are going to canvass the earth, galloping north initially to determine who among Israelites has the opportunity to live as part of that mortal remnant or dies, excluded from the return to Gan Eden, excluded from witnessing Yahweh's return. God wants them gone before his return. The last thing God wants is to come back for this beautiful homecoming. I mean, think of it. I mean, he's going to come back for this homecoming and this reconciliation with his people. Do you think that the moment he comes back, do you think that's when he wants to go and take care of and eliminate all of those people who cannot be salvaged?
Hardly.
Or do you think that he would say, I'm going to have a mechanism that eliminates all the people who cannot be salvaged and to bring the people to me for the reunion who I know and this can be saved? Yeah. And so that all we're doing now is celebrating the 1,000-year Sukkah event, returning to Eden together with family.
Yeah, he's owed that, don't you think?
Yeah, so I think that it makes perfect sense for God to call the world, both of who among the remnant of Israel stays and goes, and who among the Gentiles with this dappled horse that can serve and therefore live through the millennial Shabbat. And as I shared in the last program, I actually think that this realization that God is going to call from the world of Gentile, of Goyim, at this time, that his focus is on his people. If he were to send all of the Gentiles, because this is a do or die situation, into Sheol, that would be grossly unfair, because while there's a lot of Goyim, like Muslims and Christians, particularly Roman Catholics and progressives, that are going to earn an express ticket to Sheol, most or many are not anti-Semitic. They're not hostile to God's people. They haven't been terribly misled. They're not religious. They're not political. And they have not misled anyone, which means they would not deserve to be sent to a place of eternal punishment. They would deserve to have their souls either cease to exist, or this very unique time where they're brought into the millennial Shabbat to work, to be of service, which is vastly superior than any other option could possibly be for them. And so I think that is, God is preparing all of this. It's all going to be ready upon his return. That's one of the reasons why you hear that there'll be goyim that are actually going to come to Israel to pay their respects during Sukkah for this period. It's being arranged right now. So the chariots, particularly the black and white ones, are going to gallop north and then west, Europe and then the Americas, and they're going to determine who among God's people just has to be exterminated at this time, and who will be brought back to Israel in that white chariot to benefit from the purging flames and cleansing waters pursuant to the sacrifice of the red heifer, and then receive their king and live in God's presence. Now, one of the reasons we know that this is true is that Saphon means treasure. The direction of flight means they're going to those who are treasured. And no one is valued above Yisrael. And even when we consider that Saphon also implies north of Jerusalem, it would include all of Europe and most of America, excluding Florida, Hawaii, and parts of Louisiana and Texas. And even then, we're told that they depart to the north. So from there, they're likely going to turn west and circle the earth, and they will pass through God's waiting room in Florida, in addition to all of the United States. And of course, there are not a whole lot that they're going to be able to do in states like New York that has a high ultra-Orthodox population, because they're wearing the right clothing for the black chariot, dressed in their black mourning suits. They're properly attired. That's why God probably chose the color. They lack light. They lack enlightenment. So even then, we can see that this chariot is going to canvass the entire world and going to return back to the city of Dod. And this is particularly important because this means that the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah is going to benefit every Jew on the planet who is receptive to dropping their prior religious and political baggage. And that is particularly gratifying, because it's one thing to offer your life and to have God turn the flames and the ash and the water into that which cleanses God's people. But for it to cleanse God's people, they got to be there. And half the Jewish population of the world isn't in Israel.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've got to be there. And at this point, what are they going to do? They're going to book a cruise? You think you're going to book an airline into Israel? I mean, they're not flying into Israel except El Al now because of one Houthi missile. And so you think that when all of Israel is ablaze with Muslims flooding in from inside, outside, everywhere, and the world's at war, that you're going to book a flight to come into Israel? No. And so this is the only way. God is providing a way to bring those who can benefit from the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah and what God's going to do with them into Jerusalem. The dappled flying stallions will circle the earth at this time, but we'll talk more about them in a moment. For the benefit of the relationship, Asher, with her, the airborne horses that are black, will be dispatched towards the realm where the treasured are hidden, while the white ones go out pursuing their exodus by withdrawing them after this. Isn't that fascinating? So this is orchestrated. That red chariot, of course, is still here, because the red chariot is the Adamah Parah. That's the spiritual nature of the red heifer, making the sacrifice. And the black one goes north to where the treasured are hidden first, and which would mean that the black one is picking up all of those who aren't going to be part of the Exodus. Then we're told the white one will go out pursuing an Exodus, withdrawing them after this. You know what the Hebrew word is for Exodus?
Yatza.
Yeah.
What do you think the word is that Yahweh used here?
Yatza. Soy.
So did he answer that question?
Yeah.
So the moment you see that the white one is providing a yatza
Yeah.
from whether it's geographic Babylon, religious Babylon, or political Babylon, what do you think's going on here? And how would you relate that to what Yeshaya 17 says about this very event when God's gathering his people from the world?
Withdrawing, yeah.
Right. So it's really straight. If you know what God says about all of these things and what's going to be transpire, I think the pieces just fit together very naturally.
Oh, yeah.
This was an easy one to solve, but unbelievably profound in its implications. So all of those that are picked up by that white spiritual chariot, they're the ones that are pursuing this exodus, coming out of Babylon, my people. You heard about that?
Right. Yeah.
And Yirmiyah, come out of Babylon. Now that's what they're doing. He's pulling them out of Babylon, geographic, political, and religious Babylon. Then the speckled and dappled ones will be sent off towards the realm of the left hand. Well, the right hand is those who are with Dode, right?
Yeah, always.
And the left hand, those who are not with Dode. The right hand would be Israelites. The left hand would be Goyim. So those of the left hand, sorry about that, Leah. I know you're a left-hander, but you're still
that's just a coincidence.
Jew foremost. Yes. The speckled and dappled ones are sent off towards the realm of the left hand. So that's after this exodus. This is after the black chariots eliminates those Yehudim who have no hope. They overly religious, overtly political, the conspiratorial, the progressive. They're just gone. That's what this black horse does. So they're not around for Yahweh to have to deal with when he returns with Dove. And the white chariot is conducting a Yatza exodus, bringing his people home, withdrawing them. Then after all of that, the fourth chariot, it takes its time. It's in no hurry, but it's going around the world. It's got 10 days to do this. And it's going to collect all of those who are of the left hand, but can remain as part of a remnant of Goyim. So every Yehud and Yisraelite on the planet who can be redeemed will be returned supernaturally to Jerusalem. Supernaturally. And, I had my first time when I went over this with Leah about a week ago. She says, I don't like it. And so what don't you like? I don't like flying horses. It reminds me of Pegasus. I don't want flying horses. And I said, so what do you suppose, that God charters a flight for them? You want
Don't go American.
A cruise ship? I mean, what are you looking for if God doesn't do this way? And how is he going to bring people all around the world to benefit from the sacrifice that I'm being asked to make if he doesn't do it this way? He says, all right, okay.
Not to mention the choosing aspect of it.
I
mean, there's an intelligence here that they have to choose who's in the black and who's in the white. I don't want that.
They got a Yada, don't they?
Yeah, well, I don't want that responsibility.
Well, no, they're
Ruach of Yah. Yeah, so
no human is capable of making that, because it's not, at this point, they have not made a declaration to accept Yahweh by name necessarily. They haven't made a declaration to accept the 5 terms and conditions of the covenant. They haven't celebrated the Moed Mikrei correctly. If they had celebrated Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, they'd be part of the Towrah harvest.
Right.
So none of these people have got their act together yet. Okay, so there's no response from them that would have qualified them for that Teruah gleaning. So that's the timing of it. But there's something about them where they're not overtly political, not overtly religious, where they can be prepared by the Adam HaParah. And again, the Adam HaParah is different. That sacrifice is very different than the sacrifice of Pesach and Matzah combined that makes the person immortal and perfect. Adam HaParah is not making these mortals immortal. not perfecting them. It's cleansing them and preparing them, washing away their religious guilt, not for all time and not to make them immortal. It's to prepare them for being betrothed to the returning Messiah and King, Dowd. And so the only means of determining who can benefit from that and who would just be standing in the way and mucking things up is Yahweh's Spirit. That's why Yahweh is dispatching his Spirit to make that determination. That's who's in these chariots. And so they can go over every country of the world where there are Jews and make this determination, even if they pick up somebody who doesn't even know they're Jewish, but their DNA says they are.
Get in the back, kid.
And I'm positive that Yahweh's Ruach can read DNA.
Yeah.
He's not going to need 2, 3, and me to get this done. But that's why it's not a Malak there. It's certainly not a Choter in there. It's not Kevin and Kirk in a black and white chariot. The Spirit of Yahweh. This is serious business that only God could determine at this point. And he is not determining who's going to live forever. He's not determining who is going to be perfected so they have automatic entrance into Shamaim. He just said, who among my people can benefit from the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah and be there on Yom Kippurim and enter the millennial celebration of Sukkah, such that we can teach them and awaken them in Yahweh's presence in the garden so that they continue to make good choices.
So we get to work a lot for a long time, don't we? This is good.
We do. Oh, yeah, we're going to work for a long time. Yeah, I was trying to, I mean, quite honestly, there are times now when I do look forward to a vacation. I don't think that's unreasonable at this point. And I don't do it during my work day. I do it after I shut down in the evening. I will think about, what are we going to do on our days off? And what I constantly hear is that, you're going to be working for the next 1,000 years. So, and it's going to be enjoyable work. You're going to like the job.
Right.
But you're going to be doing this YAHOWAH blog for a while, and you're going to be teaching teachers who can teach others to teach, and for the first 45 days, you got the responsibility of being judge and jury for those who have to be exposed to those that they tormented for closure and held accountable, recompense before being sent into Sheol. So we have that 45 days of doing that kind of work, which Dowd's not going to do. Yahweh's not going to do. He's going to delegate it, and the likelihood of him delegating it to us based upon the terms he's using, like the Choter is a rod of divine judgment and justice, and the Choter does not like working alone. So, that's what your first 45 days are going to be, fellas, and then after that, it's going to be the YAHOWAH blog going forward. We're going to be deployed. God likes workers. He likes people that are productive. He likes to work with us. And so we're going to be right there in the midst of all of this and be doing it for a good long time. That doesn't mean we can't sneak off and play a round of golf or go visit a galaxy far, far away, which we will do even in the midst of that process. One of the advantages of the ultimate YAHOWAH blog.
Wow.
We can broadcast from anywhere, right?
We not only can broadcast from anywhere, but we have a library. We're going to have a vast library of broadcasts.
Right.
And the beauty of we will actually be immortals at that point, and being energy-based and being an immortal person means that during this period of time, when we go off and visit other galaxies, we can be gone for a second, and yet it seemed like years. Yeah, so we can go take a break and a vacation that has us out of play for seconds. Well, from our perspective, time slows and it's actually years. So it's going to be cool, and we could play a very leisurely round of golf if we want to. I want to bring the best of Cypress Point and Pebble Beach, Old Head, Pine Valley, and other courses that I played along the way. I want to bring the best of all of them, maybe even Augusta, and have the perfect golf course. It's going to be right out here on this little island, and we're going to tee it up.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that we get both. I mean, Yahowah's been very clear that we actually inherit the possessions of those who have battled against us. So there's a lot of possessions out there that will be enjoyed during that 1,000-year period, and how we help the mortal remnant get the most out of this time of their lives. So every Yehud and Yisraelite on planet Earth who can be redeemed will be returned spiritually by their soul, physically as well, to Jerusalem. And those who cannot will be put out of their misery and ours. This will be the end of Judaism. The final exodus will be complete, and the homecoming awaits. As for the speckled steeds, now their mission isn't of the essence in terms of it doesn't have to be done in a day, where the white chariot has to bring everybody back in a day. They can be, without the time crunch, more systematic and more diligent. And they're being dispatched to evaluate the remaining Goyim, visiting the undecided. Their mission will be to determine who among the nations will be allowed to enter the millennial celebration of Sukkah as the servants of tomorrow. Yeah, they're going to be the servants. They're going to be the worker bees. But considering that the other option is dead, and you'll be working for people who are all covenant, or this mortal remnant of Yisrael, and God's going to be on the earth, and the earth's going to be returned to the conditions of Eden. That's pretty good duty.
Good work. Yes, good work.
Yeah, and they've done nothing to deserve it,
Right.
but they're going to have this opportunity because they've done nothing to deserve going off to Sheol either.
Well, it just speaks to Yahweh how good he is.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
So they are the servants of tomorrow, and so while we're going to need caddies, someone's going to have to
Free to putt.
be part of the crew of the old blue out there that'll be bobbing up and down on the waves. These things are going to require people to work, and they'll be the workers of tomorrow. And so while the mortal remnant of Yisrael is in the process of being cleansed and prepared, the Adamah Parah, the significant cadre of Goyim who are deemed fit to serve God's people, will be spared for this purpose. Their souls will be searched to determine that they are not overtly political, religious, conspiratorial, or militant, such that they can be of continuing value. It means there'll be no progressives, there'll be no MAGAs in that group. There will be no conspiratorialists. There'll be no Christians or Muslims, no practitioners of any of the forms of Judaism in that group. So, should you be uncomfortable and you're among the few who don't like the idea of God returning to prior form and conducting the final Yatsa Exodus supernaturally as he did the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this time with winged stallions flying supernatural chariots out of the heaven around the earth, piloted by Yahweh's Ruach. Well, I would say, what's the alternative? And that's what I shared with Leah when I first came up with this. She came early in the morning and listened to what I had found, and an hour later came back and I said, sit down, I want to talk to you about this. So by the conclusion of the time of Jacob's troubles, which this is going to be of Israel's distress, there'll be nothing but corruption and chaos, economic collapse, and world war. So So do you expect the strange Jews to book a flight, catch a cruise out of the Holocaust? And should the impossible be possible at this late hour, who would be responsible for separating these people? Call it sheep and goats, call it possible from impossible. Allowing those who are receptive to a relationship with Yahweh to travel while precluding the overtly political and religious. You're not going to have somebody at the gate say, "Can I see your passport, please? Can you tell me if you're religious or political? And if you're religious, zap. Next person, please. Are you religious? Zap. Next person, you're religious? Oh, no, not me." No, it has to be done this way.
Yeah.
Now, if you're uncomfortable with Yahweh removing the Islamic scars from his Temple Mount, erecting a replica of the tent of the restoring witness, bringing Eliah back, protecting those speaking for him, flying a gargantuan scroll in the skies, releasing the cleansing waters, igniting the purging flames, cleansing his people of guilt, incinerating and washing away the trash, terraforming the scorched earth so that we can camp out in a restored Eden, and returning his son as brilliant as the sun, but not gathering his people miraculously at this time.
Don't fit. Yeah, it's got it.
I think at this moment, the supernatural is natural.
Yeah, just go with it.
Just go with it. At this point, the supernatural is natural. I'm quite certain that the allegorical and the actual are very similar. Mm-hmm. So, should you be on the opposite end of the spectrum and wonder why God didn't perform signs and wonders all along, the answer also should be obvious. It wouldn't have made a difference, and may have actually desensitized his people.
I think you're right there.
Yeah. Do you recall how the children of Israel responded after the miraculous imposition of the 10 plagues? Their release from slavery, the parting of the seas, the glowing summit of Mount Choreb, the presence of his brilliant lights and his booming voice in their presence.
It didn't even help to kill off the 5,000 by the little statue. Yeah. I mean, guys,
so,
they didn't.
No, it made things worse, not better. So, pursuant to this future necessity, during the ensuing time of scrutiny, we're told, when the flesh-colored and particularly robust ones emerge to withdraw, they will search diligently to methodically, walking and traveling through the earth. So there's a difference here. First, these horses are twice said they're robust, they're strong, they're workers, because these are the workers going forward. And they are going to have a yatzah. They're going to withdraw these people. But they're going to be very methodical in their walking and traveling. This is lahalak. Mm-hmm. Walk. They're going to go through the earth very methodically. And he said, journey about. He's speaking now to this dappled. They're neither fish nor fowl. They're not necessarily good, not necessarily bad. They're in between. And he said, journey about, diligently moving through the earth. So they halaked through the earth. This is Zechariah, remember Yahweh, 6:7. Now, every new layer of knowledge underscores, I think, the original assessment, as does what follows. During this time of the Adam, the red steed, which is when the Adam of Parah, as the red heifer, is sacrificing himself as Zebo Men Edom, the one coming from Edom, dressed in Adom, red, to save many. There will be a final search and recovery mission for potential beneficiaries. It's going to be conducted among the Saphon, treasured ones, and rendered in black and white, yes or no, life or death. Now, these spiritual steeds will search the world for the last vestige of Yisrael, and in the process, they will be extinguishing the lives of those who will not live to see Yahweh's return, while returning with those who will benefit from the sacrifice of the red heifer on this glorious Yom Teruah day, as the long rays of the sun transform the hills of the Mount of Olives and Mount Moriah into a glowing copper color. So Yahweh is stacking the deck in our favor, and thank goodness he is, as is appropriate during what he promised through Yashayah in the 17th chapter of Isaiah. He is exploring the four corners of the world for signs of life to find and retrieve in an exodus from Babel, Yehudim, that he and I, working together with Elia, can restore, which is why the Adom Ruach remains this whole time hovering in there in Jerusalem. All the while, the spiritual chariot flown by the white stallions will arrive in Jerusalem, the source of directions for reconciliations with thousands of Yehudim, beloved of Yah. Then, before their wondrous eyes, standing tall on the Temple Mount, with the tent of the restoring witness fluttering in the breeze, Elijah, will explain the significance of these events. Right on cue, Yahweh is going to release the cleansing waters and then ignite the soaring flames, so that the ashes of the man from Edom, as the Adamah Parah, can restore the once adulterous woman of Yisrael in time for her betrothal to her king. This is the greatest show on earth. This is a time of great signs and wonders. The ultimate reconciliation of God and his people. Now, quietly in the background, while this is occurring, the other survey of humankind will be more methodical. The speckled steeds will have been dispatched to determine who among the Goyim is suited to work on behalf of God's people. To some extent, this assessment will be made based upon attitude and aptitude, as some skill sets and personalities will be more desirable than others. You know, if you're among the indoctrinated entitlement generation today who isn't prepared to work and has no skill sets whatsoever except just being lazy, I'm going to tell you, if playing video games is the best you got to offer, or posting on social media, sorry. It's aptitude and attitude. There's work to be done, and you got to know how to do it. And attitude, you got to do it with a smile. No grumps allowed. But the principal determinant will be the lack of any signs of anti-Semitism, religious affiliation, political involvement, militancy, or conspiracy. If you're a Goyim, you don't want to be part of the covenant. Okay, that's fine. But you want to be part of the millennial Shabat. Well, this is the things that you need to keep in mind. It is particularly gratifying to note that the result of the survey of those God values and has brought home, there will be spiritual contentment and rest. Then he cried out to summon me, appealing emotionally to me. He was sensitive and emotive in his plea, even lamenting while proclaiming this passionately for me. This is one of the lines which causes me to think that Malach that has been speaking to Zechariah all this time is a spiritual messenger in the sense of someone who conveys Yahweh's spirit and is a messenger imbued with Yahweh's spirit who is vested in what's happening here, which is why he's kind of snippy. How come you can't figure out that this is Yada? So this point, he's emotional. He's worked up. Now, you don't expect that from a Malak, do you?
No, not at all.
But this one is. This one is sensitive. He's emotive. He's even lamenting. He's proclaiming this passionately for me, as he spoke to me to say, look up and notice that those dispatched on the Exodus to the realm of the treasured and hidden, they have set that which is associated with my Ruach, spirit, to rest, and areas which are cherished, where the cherished reside. Zecher, Yah, memorable man of Yah, Zechariah 6:8. So this is suggesting that that Malak has human qualities. Either has human qualities or he, like Yahweh, and Ruach is a feminine noun, but he who sent the Ruach is masculine, and Malak. Well, actually, Malak isn't a feminine noun; it's masculine, so we can stay with that. So this Malak, the Ruach would be feminine noun. Malak is masculine noun. That this Malak is emotive. This Malak has the human capacity for emotion. So does Yahweh, but Yahweh is not a Malak. So the Malak cannot be Yahweh. And Malak by themselves are not emotional. They are command-oriented, do what you're told implements. And so there is the high likelihood that just as when we have Dod as Malachi, as Gabriel, and then he is associated with another individual who is serving as a witness to explain what's going on. Makael, the one who is associated with God and who knows God, that this particular Malak has a spiritual component to his witness, but he's human. So then he cried out to me to summon me, appealing emotionally to me as he spoke to me to say, look, pay attention here. That those dispatched on the Exodus to the realm of the treasured and hidden, that would be, this white chariot with the white spirit. They have set that which is associated with my Ruach, the spirit. And now at this point, there aren't very many people who can say my Ruach. We have nefesh souls. Yahweh obviously has a Ruach, but Yahweh has given his Ruach to certain individuals. And so there is an individual out here who can say my Ruach, who is important at this particular event. So is there the possibility that is what's being inferred here, that this person is representing the man who is the Choter with this 7 Ruach of Yahweh? That certainly seems to be what it is saying.
Yeah. Right.
Does it matter? No, but is that about the only interpretation that makes any sense? And then you might say, but wait a minute, you weren't born when this was revealed back in 500 BCE, but Yahweh is capable of taking a soul forward and back in time.
Yeah.
So
Yahowah did it.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. And he is celebrating this harvest that is this return of these people from the treasured ones with his spirit, providing spiritual rest, nuach, and areas which the cherished reside. Well, where are the most cherished going to reside? Where have they brought them back to? They brought them back to
more.
Yeah, to Jerusalem, right? to Mount Moriah, between Mount Moriah and the Mount of Olives, is where they've been brought back. And who's there?
It's to be you.
Yeah, the Adam of Parah is right there. And there they are cherished. I mean, you don't give up your life for people that aren't cherished by you, right?
Hardly.
You don't devote the last 32 years of your life, every waking moment, unless these people are cherished by you and cherished by God for bringing them there.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been brought back to the place that's cherished. So there is something unique, very special indeed, about this Malach spiritual messenger. The heavenly envoys are normally communicative, but not emotional. They commonly convey the message they have been tasked with delivering, but they don't typically challenge the listener to examine the allegorical evidence they are presenting, such that the prophet is not only encouraged to be discerning and to comprehend the meaning on their own, but also chided, as was the case with this Malach, when the prophet doesn't quickly deduce what the consequences of what they're seeing. These are human characteristics of somebody who is deeply enmeshed in this, who has spent his life in it and saying, you know, we're already now at the very short moments in time. Everything is riding on this. The entire survival of the planet, where this is the remnant of Israel that are going to enter the celebration of Sukkah, that Yahweh is going to come back to, that's going to be the great honor of the king to lead, and that God's going to celebrate in the homecoming. That's who we're talking about here. This is how it's going to happen. And so when you don't get it, yeah, I'm going to needle you. You should be able to get this. This is really important. So I think it is somebody that's vested in this.
And it's an important piece for this time. It's something that, Zach, you got to write this down and get it right, because we're going to need this piece later on, buddy. So, you know, let's get this right.
Yeah, you need to know what's going on. When those four horses appear, it's important that they understand this is what they're about.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's... I know.
You're checking your finger, Yaakov.
I know. The only reason I was translating this too is because I was trying to do the right thing for my wife, and when the psychopath wanted to send her off to hell as the evil woman in a basket, I knew that I needed to translate the passages that they were claiming sent her off to hell. And once I was there, I'm not one to say, well, let's stop here. Let's see what else we can learn.
Really?
This was really fascinating. Why is that basket, the Whore of Babylon, why is the Whore of Babylon being taken to Babylon and not into Sheol? And so you want to know what happens next, so that you can appreciate, you know, what God has in store. And then you come into, oh my God, here are the four horsemen, and what a story that is. To be able to explain exactly what's happening and how every element of this has to be this way. So that's one of the reasons why I'm just so comfortable with this, is because there is no way that any aspect of this can be any different than this. I would give you all day to come up with another scenario that would be consistent with the nature of Yahweh at this time.
It's been fascinating. It's my fourth read through, and it's still good.
Yes. Yeah, I just think it's amazingly affirming for God to put this final piece of this puzzle together this way. So the reason that I wanted to bring this to your attention is because I share, as I've said before and hinted at, I share this Malach's response to this amazing revelation and turn of events. Not only are we the first in 25 years to perceive the intent of the first chariots, we are joyous participants in God's story. We are participants. We're not just observers. And this is a remarkable moment in time, maybe the most remarkable. The only thing it can be compared to this is Dod's fulfillment of Pesach Matzah B'Kodim in 33 CE. And at that point, there was only one witness, and that was the participant who wrote his own testimony. And for the first time in a long time, all of the loose ends are being tied together, and the final details of Yahweh's portrait are being revealed.
Yes.
And that's worth celebrating. The appeal is both cerebral and it's emotional. Now, based on the recalcitrant history of Jews, recognizing how resilient they have been to God, even antagonistic towards him, telling Yahweh to shut up and go away, it has always been unrealistic to think that after 3,400 years of rebellion and denial, that they're going to suddenly change just because the truth has been made available to them by an Akri, by an observant foreigner, by a goy. And I've always known this, that Moshe couldn't get their attention. Yahweh couldn't get their attention.
Yeah.
Dod couldn't get their attention. Yashayah, the great prophet, couldn't get their attention. How in the hell am I supposed to get their attention? It's been unrealistic. Even though we have so many other benefits, like the seven spirits of Yahweh enabling us, like 23 years of prior preparation to understand and be the first to put the whole picture together, so we have a more complete story to present than anyone in history. So we have advantages, and then we have all of these internet advantages. When else was there the possibility for us to live stream this message to anybody that has a smartphone? And there's only 8 billion of them among the 8 billion people in the world, that particularly with the satellites up now for internet connectivity worldwide, there's been no other time where somebody could live stream a presentation like this to the world or make the books available to everybody in the world. But we can now. So we have some unique advantages. That doesn't change the point that Jews have been stubborn and irascible and opposed to Yahweh's name and opposed to his Messiah and Son, our Savior, for 3,000 years. So if God didn't intervene in this way, we just would have no chance of being as successful as he deserves. And so this is enormously comforting that God's going to do this. So Jews have become the foremost experts at twisting the truth to suit their delusions, and no people have ever been as intractable. So why all the effort? Why the library at Yada Yahowah, YAHOWAH.com, the Yahowah blog, the thousands of radio programs and interviews that have been available, replete with all of the posts made on social media, tens of thousands of them? If Yahweh knew all at the time that he would have to intervene to send a flying spiritual chariot to rescue the wayward flock and to carry them home, well, why all this work if that's what he's ultimately going to do? And I think the answers are many. I think they're profound. So I'd like to share them, and then we can.
Please do.
It's call this program, but and we've already passed the hour. But this is not family hour, so we're not actually limited to 1 hour and 59 minutes to make it family hour.
Yeah, I don't care what Kevin said. You go ahead.
You go ahead. Okay. First, Yahweh always works through people. Always. And this is no exception. The only difference here is that he is more personally involved than normal with his 7 Ruach. But this is something we have known ever since he inspired the Choter with his spirits and then committed to lifting up the Neph sign that collaborate Lively Yahweh, the Ruach, and I would compose. This has been a collaborative effort, and that's just God's style. He, may not like the people that he chose to work with, but he chose them, and it's his choice, and he enables them, and this time is no different than any other time. He picked somebody. I happen to be that guy. And, I'm not going to knock his pick.
No, me either. I like his choice.
I think I think I have proven that I was worthy of the pick in the sense that I've been devoted, I've been consistent. I've applied the noggin here to everything I've seen, come up with lots of insights, shared them boldly, and I was not the least bit hesitant when God says, I want you to go from having spent 23 years as a translator and writer to now turning on the lights and the camera and the microphone and speaking to my people. What God wants, I'm happy to deliver. So I think we've been a good team.
Sure.
And I think it's important to recognize that I think we've been a good team. We've worked well together, and we're going to continue to work well together. So the second is that there are no flying spiritual chariots prior to the afternoon, or could even be the early morning when they depart, on Yom Towrah, on the Shabat of September 24th. And of course, they could be departing on the evening of the 23rd of September during that final ingathering. So that could be the sunset hues. It could be the evening, which is Teruah, of the 23rd, when the ingathering is taking place, so they can canvass the entire earth and be back for the time of the brutalization and sacrifice of the Adam Parah before God, and Elia orchestrate this glorious spectacle of the fire and the waters and the ash and this sort of thing. So that's also a possibility in timing. I think it's probably the most logical timing in this case. And so that means that the Shabua Katsir and the Teruah Lakot are cultivated independently of this final and physical ingathering of mortal Israelites. So you've got what is a supernatural, divine ingathering of covenant family twice, once on Shabua, once on Teruah. And this then commences immediately thereafter, perhaps even concurrent with the Teruah ingathering. So third, Yahweh is actually building off of what we have previously achieved. In so doing, God has demonstrated that it has always been possible to know his Shem, appreciate his son, engage in his bereth, answer his mikre, and understand the who, where, when, why, and even how of his prophetic discourse. He has given everyone of the 8 billion people of the earth in possession of or access to a smartphone, a computer, or a television, access to the truth in a way that is relevant, inspirational, complete, and relatively easy to understand. And even if you don't speak English, the smartphones now with AI interfaces, they can listen to a program in English and translate it into Swahili if they wish. Russian, Chinese, French, German, you name it. Anything that is heard now can be in real time translated by your smartphone into the language you speak, as well as anything that's written. It's amazing how the technology and the time to disseminate the message just all came together. Fourth, Dode deserves this. He has been disrespected and robbed for far too long. Someone needed to correct the record, to explain who did what, when, why, and for whom, while also being the first to denounce the counterfeits. Don't deserve that.
Yes, sir.
It needed to be done, and we've done it. Just as God needed to show that it was possible, even for a goy, to understand his prophets, to understand his Torah, and to deduce all of the elements that come into portraying who God is, what he is offering and expects in return, as well as his timeline, and to appreciate the nature of the covenant and the Moed Mikre and his timeline. All of that needed to be shown, demonstrated, proven. And that's what all these books back here do. That's what this program does. Fifth, Yahweh wants his people protected from the horrible abuse they have suffered from Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Writing Babel, Twistianity, and goddamn religion have served as a means to that end. Now, God is not silent when it comes to condemning the religions that have attacked his people. And so he is fair, and he wants to give his people every opportunity to understand the hostile and caustic nature of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And we have done that more completely than anyone in human history. Sixth, without the years of study and contemplation, I would have been inadequately prepared, as would you guys have been.
Certainly.
To serve as a final witness. I would not have known about my role at this time. I could not have fulfilled it. So without all of this study, without all of this to do, would not have been able to serve in this role. Wouldn't have shown up. Would have been useless once there. It takes preparation. So further, those witnessing these things would have no frame of reference to understand any of it. The horsemen would show up and they say, where are you going? What are we doing? What's up?
And we've already done that.
But now they know. Now those who are interested know precisely what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, why it's going to happen, how they should respond when it occurs. And that would not have happened if we hadn't taken all of this effort up to this point. Seventh, King David will not rule alone. He will have a Bashar herald with the requisite experience and acumen to do the job. And his herald is not going to do the job alone. He's going to have a team of very qualified and devoted individuals who know the truth and who are willing to engage on behalf of God's people, working with Yahweh and on behalf of our King. Now, this isn't possible. You couldn't co-host this program and serve in the Yahowah blog going forward without the years of dedication. It requires reading these books multiple times, examining them, challenging them, and being part of these kinds of programs to be prepared to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And so we've had the on-the-job training by Yahowah to perform as he intends. And eighth, it's actually more enjoyable for God this way. And God deserves to smile now and again, don't you think? Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, God gets to work with those who are devoted and loyal to him and to his son, while achieving the results that they both desire and that he anticipated. But then to reduce some of the pressure on his Choter and Team Yah, Yahowah is letting us know that there is a failsafe in the end. You know, we something goes terribly south for us. Yahowah has a failsafe. He's not going to allow this to be anything shy of what he wants for his son to celebrate. God's a great father. Great fathers do not pass on kingdoms without subjects. They don't ask a man to rule without family. And so God's going to make certain that that's accommodated. And it should also be noted that by collecting additional Yisraelites from around the world to benefit from the sacrifice of the Yada Yahowah, Yahweh isn't suggesting that Elia and I failed, or that the team supporting us, that you guys have not delivered the appropriate audience. He's just adding to it. So he's not saying that we didn't accomplish what we set out to do. He's just augmenting what we are doing. He's adding more. At a time when there'd be no way for us to bring these other people into Jerusalem to capitalize on this, and they may have all put themselves in a position where they could, based upon what they're hearing, but had no locomotion, and God's providing the get along.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. Yeah. They're there. They know they just can't get here.
Correct. So he's making certain that the sacrifice is more beneficial, which is an act of great kindness, because with Dode, his sacrifice benefited very few people until we brought people's attention to it. And this time, Yahweh's not going to allow that to happen. There's going to be instant gratification in the sacrifice of the Yada Yahowah. So God is explaining how he will go about the final Yatsa Exodus, bringing a world of Yehudim and Israelites to Yahudah for the ultimate homecoming. What's more, since the Israelites comprising the mortal remnant will only have known Yahweh or recognized Dode for a matter of days, someone is going to have to teach them. And what better way to have a library filled with books ready for the occasion, and this Yahowah blog with thousands of hours of prepared and cataloged testimony, all ready for their listening pleasure. And we are going to get a vacation because, well, they're going to have to go through all of this material. And, if they dedicated 3 hours a night, it's a full year before they get through the books. And we'll have another year's worth of video blog for them to listen to and contemplate.
So we go fishing too.
So wow. We can play golf, go fishing, go for a cruise, and go visit a nearby galaxy or one far, far away.
All right.
Not that our vacation time is essential to all of this,
no,
but it actually is, though. You know why? Because Yahweh wants to reward productive work. We're not working just for the sake of working. We're not beasts of burden.
Right.
God wants us to enjoy the fruits of we have yielded. And now, certainly we can do that by sharing in the joy of this mortal remnant of Israel, and showing in the joy of the spiritual children of the covenant that participated in Shabat and Towrah. But we can also just go off and explore and have fun.
Good to me.
So it's at work. So and that's being offered to everyone.
Okay.
So no matter how we contemplate what our God has just revealed through this Malach messenger, this is indeed wonderful. It's encouraging news. It means there will be Yehudim gathered from around the world to benefit from the sacrifice of the man coming out of Eden as the red heifer. In the end, Yahweh finds and delivers the final remnant of his people. And you haven't heard the half of it yet. It gets even better. And again, one of the benefits of all of this is that there are a lot of Jews out there that are actually looking for a red heifer so that they can sacrifice the red heifer and then rebuild the temple. And little do they know, just like the Passover lamb that fulfilled Passover wasn't a lammy, but the Messiah and Son of God, the returning King, Dode. The red heifer is a dude.
In a cow either.
He's a person.
And it's provided.
Yeah, and he's being provided. You don't have to
They
go
don't have to. They don't have to go to Texas. They don't have to make clone one. Nothing. Yeah.
Nope.
Without blemish. No, it's already been provided.
Yep. It's already been decided. He's volunteered. He knows when he has to show up. He knows what's going to happen. He's good with it. And Elia is all prepped on the ceremony, and Yahweh's got the matches at the ready. All done for the receiving. So that part is wonderful. So earlier, when I determined that the Edom did not apply to Yahweh, but instead to Dode, rather than even his rival, the Lord, the Adon, the adversary, this next line strongly suggests that I was right. But more than this, what Yahweh says is among the more reassuring statements we have yet considered. And we have reached the 2-hour moment in this broadcast, so we'll end with this one, and be ready for more programs tomorrow. And then the Debar word of Yahweh came to exist with me to say, grasp hold of and obtain from those associated with the exiles who were forcibly deported among the Chaldee, mine of the world, and among the Tobiah, the favored and agreeable to Yahweh, and from those associated with Yada Yahowah. And then you should go for yourself in the same day and come to and enter the house of Yoshua, those Yahweh found and now supports. The Ben Saphaniah, the children Yahweh treasures, who, for the benefit of the relationship, have come out of Babylon, where commingling has previously caused confusion. Zechariah 6:10. Now, did you ever think you would have God give a shout out to Yada Yahowah?
No, not like that. That's a wow.
YAHOWAH.com. Thank you very much, Yahowah.
Thanks, boss.
Yeah. If you're going to get an endorsement for your life's work, that's a good one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a wow. I think we have the ringside seat.
Yeah.
And we're actually inside of the ring for the greatest show in the history of the earth. And here we are, not just in the front row seats, we're actually in the ring. We get to see these things for the first time that anyone has ever perceived them, and it's just a smile from ear to ear. It's the only thing you can wonder is why every Jew in the world
is here with us, smiling,
capitalizing upon this. This is so wonderful. Yahweh just said that all of this
favorite, agreeable of Yahweh, and
world that is mine, those that are favored and agreeable to Yahweh, that those that were exiled and forcibly deported, that I'm coming and I'm bringing back in that white spiritual chariot, that they are the ones who associated with Yada Yah.
Yeah,
just wow.
So,
gentlemen,
thanks for letting me be part of this.
Yeah, what can you add to that?
Wow, that's a high.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, it's one thing to have devoted the time, who enjoyed every moment of it, but to have built this library and have begun the Yahweh blog and to have been so enthusiastic and steadfast pursuing Yehudim and Yisrael on behalf of Yahweh and Dode. and doing it for all the right reasons for 24 years. It's another thing entirely. To here we are, and we see that God's gathering those who are associated with Yada Yahowah, which means that without Yada Yahowah, they wouldn't be there.
Gathered. Right.
That's why Dode said that the productive and observant bull is the one who fills the manger and the cradle of the covenant. Well, gentlemen, that's why I wanted you to participate in this. I knew where we were headed. We'll pick this up on another day, but brings tears to my eyes. I can tell you that right now, my eyes are watering with joy.
I got my Kleenex.
Yeah, it is this is just as reassuring and as heartwarming as, well, anything could be. We have not done this for God's approval. We have done this because God wanted it done, and we've enjoyed doing it, and we are committed to continuing to do it. And God did not have to give us a pat on the back and say, "Attaboy."
I'd say nothing. But wow.
Yeah, that this is really the result of Yada Yahowah. But he did. And it's important that he knows that we recognize it and that we appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
He's a good and loving father, and we are lucky to be in his service. So I thank you. This has been a special edition of the YAHOWAH blog, bringing you Zechariah 6, one of the most profoundly important and interesting prophecies ever revealed, and you heard it explained for the first time in your presence.
Thank you, and guys, and Leah, say hey.
Yep.
Wonderful.
The beautiful Leah just walked by in front of me. She's all dolled up for our Mother's Day brunch that we went out to. She's going to be the mother of the covenant family of Yisrael.
There you go.
We had a lovely Mother's Day brunch to celebrate it on the beach today. And so it was a most enjoyable day, along with being able to share this program and to begin the day by sharing how essential the 103rd Mizmor Psalm is to understanding. Come here, Wookie. Understanding everything that Yahowah had to say that he was going to accomplish through his beloved son, Dode. So the Wookiee even wants to say, okay, it's a family show. We got the guys for the family together, and here I am. But no.
Oh, there's a dog in the picture.
There's that dog. Okay, well, Wookiee, say goodbye, Wookiee. Ruff. Okay, Wookiee is actually kissing the dog and looking at the dog and wagging his tail at the dog.
Admiring that dog.
And Asher feels jealous, so Asher has grabbed a toy out of Wookiee's bed. Right over here to play toy with me. So this is definitely a family program, and we're delighted to be part of Yahowah's family and to bring it to you. Have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you again.
Yo too.
Good night.
Good night.